Got check. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the WoAS podcast. For the second week in a row, the music gods have granted us another golden opportunity. We have the fortune of sitting down with none other than the master of the mix, the man that puts the Joe in mojo, and an all-around entertaining personality, Mr. Joe Carrell. And we don't have lead-in music, but there you go.
Yeah. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
So Joe is joining us from his beautiful home studio outside of Nashville, specifically in the Berry Hill area. Am I getting that right?
Well, my tracking room is in Berry Hill.
Sorry.
The mix room, the mix room is up in a suburb called Hendersonville.
Okay.
So it's maybe 30 minutes drive, 35 minutes drive to downtown. So not too bad.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and Conway Twitty all live just right over here. What used to, obviously they don't anymore.
Right.
But yeah. There's some royalty. Now that's on the lake. My home is not on the lake because I don't have that kind of money.
Mm-hmm. I actually used to live in that area, Joe, and I had a friend that lived across the street from Conway Twitty's old house.
Yeah, so, that's just if you just follow that road on back, that's me. Yeah.
Yep. They had much more money than my family did, but they were good friends to have.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was quite a home he had.
Yes.
We don't have names like that in show business anymore. Conway Twitty, Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shame. So Jeremy, you want to kick us off with a little bit of Joe Carrell background, and he could tell us if we get everything wrong.
Yeah, Joe, you can tell us where we're wrong here. I pulled most of this from your website, so maybe you got it wrong, but probably not.
That's possible. I could have been tired or something.
Yeah. So Joe's Nashville-based producer, mixer, recording engineer, been in the business for over 20 years. Has worked on 11 Grammy-nominated albums, mixed or recorded. And you've got 33 chart number ones mixed and many others recorded.
I think it's 35 now, but
35
I need to get that. I need to get that updated.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling that to my attention.
There you go. Yeah. So you
also do website audits. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Mike's your guy if you need that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you've had a great career, and we'd like to talk to you a little bit about how you got into this business, what got you into music, all those things. I've heard you say in some interviews that you used to be a drummer or still are a drummer, but that was kind of your first step into the music industry.
Yeah, for sure. I just a musical little fella. I don't really know where it came from because that really wasn't part of my family. Maybe the enjoyment of music, but not the playing of music. But I was that little kid that would put on his dad's headphones and play his 8-track tapes and his albums and his even, believe it or not, quarter-inch reel. It's still back there. See that quarter-inch reel-to-reel machine?
Wow.
Yeah,
that was my dad's. He got it in 1970.
Wow.
And so I'm a little dude in with the headphones. Just I remember Crimson and Clover and stuff. From Tommy James and the Shondells. My dad had it on the court. I just listened to that over and over, fascinated by the tremolo, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think my parents must have seen that kind of a thing, and so they got me a drum set when I was only 7.
Nice.
And
brave parents.
Yeah. Well, 1 year later, Cheap Trick releases Live at Budokan. And I'm an 8-year-old kid obsessed with that. My uncle bought me that album. And I mean, if anybody that's listening that's never heard that album knows the drums. Well, the whole concert was electric, but the drums, that Bunny Carlos just drove that band like a mother.
Yeah.
And I remember even at 8 years old thinking, like, wait a minute, here's my drum set. Listen to Buns. It's like, that's like, like what's going on? Like,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. But so, there was this chasing and whatever of music and learning instruments and various things from all the way from that far back, honestly.
Really cool.
But drums became my main thing. And I was convinced I was going to be the next Jeff Porcaro. I was just
Okay.
a massive Jeff Porcaro fan, just in
Mhm.
the studios playing all the hits, right?
Right.
In LA back in the day when I was coming up and learning. And so he was my Michael Jordan. And all that to say that trying to get into the business as a drummer, but being fascinated with the sound of drums, and buying my own, I wanted to record
Hmm.
myself too, but
Mhm.
it was drum based. It wasn't recording based. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Right.
was, I wanted to record and be good at that because of the drumming, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That makes
Um,
sense.
so, I got, this is in the 90s, got a Mackie 16 channel, the original 16 channel Mackie,
Hmm.
and the old blackface ADATs, the 16-bit ADATs, and like Alesis outboard, just very entry level stuff, and started building my own studio. So I was playing in church, I was playing in nightclubs, and then recording myself in my back bedroom,
Wow.
and
Okay.
became obsessed with trying to make my drums sound like what I heard on records,
Sure.
which, as you know, is not what they really sound like most of the time.
No, no.
Right.
Right, right. So one thing led to another, and my first open door as far as a full-time career, because music had been part-time since as soon as I turned 21, and was old enough to get into bars and
Hmm.
start making a living. um, uh, um, my first like full-blown opportunity was on the other side of the glass, and I was already fascinated with that too. I mean, just the
Mhm.
whole studio experience. I
Yeah.
remember when I would go in and play, on my band records and whatnot, in Evansville, Indiana, and Mount Vernon, Illinois, little towns, um, just not wanting to leave, the VU meters and the LED meters, and it was just paradise for me. It's all
Yeah.
I ever wanted to do and be. So anyway, when that door opened, it was a huge opportunity, honestly. It was to assist Bobby Bradley, which was the nephew of Owen Bradley, which, there's two men that started the reason that Nashville is the Mecca that it is
Hmm.
because of Owen Bradley and Chet Atkins.
Okay.
Those two, the Music Row is Music Row because of those two guys. That's where they built their studios. And
Interesting.
anyway, so I got to learn. Owen had just passed away, unfortunately. This was in the later 90s. And
Mm.
so I never got to meet him, but I got to work in his studio, use his gear, learn under his engineer, which was also blood a relative. And I mean, you
Wow.
can't ask for,
No.
that was long enough ago. Some of the schools that exist now still existed, or were new,
Hmm.
like Full Sail, I think, was going.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
conservatory out in Phoenix, I believe, or is it Tempe? Wherever it's at in Arizona, it was operational, but there weren't very many schools yet. State
Okay.
schools didn't have a program, or very
Right.
few of them. All these trade schools that have popped up since those, they didn't exist yet. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I still learned under kind of the apprentice method, the
Hmm.
old school method, where you would study underneath somebody in a real room on real sessions,
Yeah.
and you just kind of shadowed them until you were good enough to do certain tasks, and then
Yeah.
they would give you that task until you were ready for another one. And
Yeah.
man, just
Interesting.
honestly, just so blessed, so lucky, just because most any of us that came up successfully in that era and that approach, you know, I think are pretty honest with ourselves and everybody else to know that we weren't deserving at that time. Our talent and our skill was not there. You just had to have
Mhm.
somebody to believe in your work ethic and your hunger and your passion,
Yeah.
and because that's all you have. You don't have the technical ability yet.
Yeah.
So, but I found those people that believed in me and gave me the shot. And so,
That's
man,
wonderful.
yeah, it's been been quite a ride since then.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what's interesting about how your pathway to this versus what you were, some of the other schools and trade schools and programs at schools that you mentioned is that, and they're all great, and anyone that's doing that now, I think that's a wise decision, but you still have to then go to the actual studio you're going to wind up interning at or working at. You have to learn the way that they're going to do it. So
Mhm.
you can have
Right.
all of the academic background you want, and sometimes you walk into a studio and you're not totally starting from scratch, but there's
It's close.
Yeah, right. And there's a vocabulary you have to learn too. And you know, it's also like a lot of personalities and things that you have to navigate, you know. Engineers can be some smarmy types sometimes, you know. So
Oh gosh, yeah.
you know.
There's all when you're assisting in a commercial room, you meet all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Some of them you love, and they become literally friends and clients forever. And some of them just become the story of like, man, that one dude, what a jerk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They probably worked on a bunch of hit stuff, so you have to respect them regardless.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So some of the people maybe deserve their nah, no one should be a jerk. No one, you know
True.
what? Nah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you're right. Sometimes yeah, some of those legendary names, you know, have some legendary stories.
Oh yeah.
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 Do you have are there certain standout surreal moments earlier on in your career when you're either assisting or starting out, you know, at the board that
Oh gosh, there's so many. In my early days, we were at Owen Bradley's studio with his microphone collection and his gear. So you're talking about microphones that have been used on, you know, Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn, and I mean,
Wow.
just on. I mean, you know, from that era on up.
Yeah.
I mean, those microphones were in the building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, Owen had just passed away, and we were working late on some mixing. And I remember going to the bathroom, and Owen's office was just across the hallway from the restrooms, you know, cattywampus, as we say here in Nashville. And I came out of the bathroom, and me and Bobby were the only two there, and it was late. And I walked Owen's office. You should know the family had forbidden it to be touched. You couldn't even enter the room. That was an understood rule. If you're going to go in there, you do not even walk on the carpet. I mean, he was that holy to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I remember kicking on the lights and, you know, like reaching around and kicking on the lights, but I didn't go in. I really didn't. But stood there and just kind of just trying to, you know, picture him at that desk working.
Yeah.
And interestingly, no one ever did go in there and touch that office. It sat there for years, not a pen moved, not a paper moved, nothing. And the Hall of Fame came, you know, the family gave it to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so they came in, photographed it, documented everything, and then moved it to the Hall of Fame. And it may still be there. It probably is, you know.
Wow.
So that was little things like that, you know, the very first, I was a huge Jeff Carrell fan, as I've already said. That's who I wanted to be. And so, which means you're a massive Toto fan. You know, I mean, how can you be a Jeff Carrell fan and not be a Toto fan?
So,
and you know, so all those hours in the bedroom playing all those massive hits and stuff. Rosanna, you know, as a wannabe drummer. And my very first, I think it was my first session with real Nashville studio cats. You know, the bass player was David Hungate. I mean, he was the original Toto bassist, so he played on Rosanna and all those hits with Jeff. And so, you know, as a 20-something kid that's don't even deserve to be in the room, I was in the room with Dave Hungate, you know what I mean? And being able to just tell him how much him and those records and recordings meant to me that was pretty surreal, you know. He's probably just like, stop talking, kid, you know, because I'm trying to work. And I'm just like, you're freaking Dave Hungate, you know. But yeah, I mean, there's just been so many of those, you know. The first time you get to work, if you study session players the way I did back then, and I don't know if that's a thing like it is now, like it was then, because session players don't even get credit hardly. But those guys were gods to me.
Sure.
And so getting to work with, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm with Brent Mason today, you know, like that's country radio, you know, for decades was Brent Mason and his leads and stuff. So stuff like that, you know, getting to meet people that are heroes to you that's some of my biggest memories, probably.
No, that's amazing. How awesome too for you that, you know, you get to again, like you just said, play alongside someone that was like, you know, this like larger than life character and this larger than life band.
I mean, it's like, dude, you played Rosanna, like that's you. You know? He's like,
I know.
I mean, those guys were my Michael Jordans. I mean, they were, you know, they were If they would have had posters, I'd have put them on the wall. They were that important to my development and my, making me want to be the best that I could be, striving
Yeah.
to equal them,
With good
never.
reason.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wait, I'm curious if you feel, from your perspective and everything you've seen from then to now, by virtue of the way that you started off at that studio, are there more opportunities in Nashville to sort of, both historically and then through today, to get involved on that playing field in a way you wouldn't maybe in some other cities?
100%. I believe that Nashville, okay, everything that I idolized when in my 20s was coming out of LA. Not country music, but in the pop world. I mean, that was the scene. That's where Jeff Porcaro was and all these people that I idolized. That is largely gone, as everyone knows. Not that LA isn't still a huge music scene, because it is. It's still one of the capitals of the world.
Right.
But as far as where the session, gods are nowadays, so many of them have moved here, and this is the town that's now working the way that the LA did.
Okay.
So LA is now very compartmentalized. I mean, there's some big band done and some jazz done, and everyone, I'm not saying there's not records done with everybody in the room.
Right.
But when we bring LA guys in to work on sessions, they're all like, oh my God, this reminds me of the good days when I got to go. I would set up my drum set and I'd look across the room and there's the bass player and there's the electric player and the keyboard players, the piano's in the piano booth. Like, we're all in here making a record together at one time.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, drummer counts it off and bam, like we're making a music, and it's not already, they say when, like most of the time when they're in LA now, for this goes back many, many years, they're by themselves with the producer or engineer replacing some kind of a MIDI part, or something like that.
Right.
It's not what they got in the business to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that excitement of playing with real guys and making stuff up on the fly and catching something. It's like, oh my God, did you hear what he did in bar 3 of that chorus? If he does it again, I'm gonna be right there and I'm ready to double it, or play a harmony line to it. And because these guys are brilliant. I mean, these guys that do this all day, every day, are on a different plane. I mean, so freak. I mean, I tracked all day today with guys like that, and it's, man, all these years in, they still just blow my mind how good they are.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, we still have a bunch of studios, a bunch of engineers, a bunch of songs being recorded that way every day.
Right.
So I believe there's more opportunities for younger people that get out of Full Sail and all these other schools to come to Nashville and fall into the same kind of, even though they've got, a degree, which I didn't, still kind of follow that path. I've had several come up underneath me that way. They started as my assistant or my intern and developed a career just from being in the room with me, learning from me, and then meeting people, and then they kind of just divide off of you and do their thing, just like I did Bob. If that's the way it's supposed to be. We learn from the people that teach us and grow our career out of that camp, however it works. And then as we, then when we're the guy and we bring up people underneath us, eventually they've got to move on. If they're with you for very, very, too long, then you're not doing your job. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's been my assistant for 8 years. It's like, dude, you must suck then. Because he should be good enough. He should be good enough by now that he's on his own.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of opportunities like that, but most of them come through colleges now, because a lot of the major studios have relationships with, what do they call those people? Not a guidance counselor, but like people that get placements and things like that.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? So so that person at Full Sail or the conservatory or whatever state school we're talking about will have a connection, and that's how that kid gets an internship anyway.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. It also, I think you're touching on something interesting, where we're in the world now where there's a lot of, and this is great in many ways, and Jeremy and I would be part of this category. There's the bedroom producer, or in this case the basement producer, right? Where they can use all of the DIY information at their disposal and make something great. But sometimes that's more of like a serving your own artistry type thing. I think what you're talking about when people are looking to be, a real, almost nothing but hands-on engineer for the sake of doing that and the love of that, that it's probably still best and recommended in terms of hoping for success to be doing it in a apprentice-like, in a mentor-like scenario where, you're earning your stripes and you're doing the real physical thing day in and day out to hone those skills the way you need to. Like, I think that's something that people need to hear, that people like yourself and like Warren Hewart and, Streaky and whoever else is out there that has a lot of, eyes on them. It's important to remember that a lot of these people have cut their teeth by doing it a very specific way. And that though we all take advantage of all, this like in the box philosophy and different type of technology that wasn't there 15 years ago, it still matters to be able to like track in a real room that's meant for tracking and so on and so forth. So, and I hadn't really thought about that until now, to be honest with you.
I really believe strongly that I think the best people, in the business become a hodgepodge of all the stuff they learn from other people that are better than them at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, they may come up and be equal to or even exceed their teachers, but they weren't just by themselves figuring it out. They got to, which is easier to do now because, like you said,
Sure.
YouTube and you can join the Produce Like a Pro Academy, and there's so many great resources that we didn't have. So it may be a little different, but still, I think sitting in the room with people that are better than you, the way that I got to do, and learn from them, pick certain things that you loved, and then that became your thing too. There's, what the thing is, all of us will tell you that there was some of the things they did that their mentor did that didn't suit them.
Yeah.
They're like, I mean, that's because we're all we're all individuals rather.
Right.
So, but then you learn, you try something else and find out you like something else better than what he did. So it's like, okay, that's my go-to. Or you assist other people. Like, the Tom microphones that I use to this day, I remember because I assisted another guy 25 years ago. I was like, oh my God, that's the Tom sound I've been wanting all my life. And that's it. Like, it's that microphone right there.
Yeah.
But I would have never known if I wouldn't have been in the studio with that guy.
Sure.
So, yeah, man, I tell you what, I feel like putting yourself in a room with people that are either superior or true peers, is where you just keep on climbing a ladder, whether, and I'm talking about your own ladder, not even with your career, as far as knocking off the goals that you have for yourself, as far as when you push play on your mix or you push play on your recording or at the end of the track of it's like that. That's what I wanted. That I think that's how you keep getting there and knocking down those barriers is by just the hours with people that are better than you. That's how it happened to me. I'm not some kind of savant. I mean, it's people that, sewed into me and the experience that I had underneath them that, created what I am. And I think almost everybody I know says that exact same thing.
Yeah. Cause I know even for myself that was always, it became my philosophy. I kind of like hindsight look back and was like, oh, this is why I've improved with playing with other musicians that were all better than me. I think that even to this day, if I'm enlisting other musicians to do something or I'm trying to work with them, like it's almost a requirement that they're like head and shoulders above me because, I need to sort of rise to their level, not the other way around, and that's how you learn. So
it may be humbling and it may be scary and all that kind of stuff, but you leave a better guitarist or engineer or whatever the case may 100%. Be at the end of that day. And that's what it's all about. If you're always the best one in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just a fact,
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I mean, like Bob Clearmountain can't go in any room where he's not the best. I get it. At some point you are, the GOAT, but for most of us, we can't say that. We spend a big chunk of our career around people that are better than us. And that's what makes us, great. I hope.
It's awesome
Yeah.
advice. Yeah. So, Jeramy, I know you had questions coming right out of the subject, actually. Maybe recommendations for bedroom producer essentials.
Yeah. So my question really, I think, where we're headed in this conversation is like, what does the bedroom producer that's starting out or, has a couple tracks under their belt, what are those essential elements that they're missing whenever they're trying to do, all their own engineering, they're trying to record everything, mix, master. I'm sure you get submissions from people all the time that you can just point out every flaw in their process all the way up and
Well,
down.
yeah, if I'm being honest, and this is going to burst some balloons, and I don't mean it to, but at the same time, if it helps somebody,
Do
that's
it.
great. Is
Yeah.
I find it's people that try to do too much of their own stuff. Now, every once in a while, you do come across somebody that was like, wow, they did that, and that, and that, and that's close. Like that's great. Maybe they need to hire a professional mastering engineer, or it'd have been better if they would have, used a real drummer, studio drummer or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's all like really, really, really great. But for the most part, let's just face it, we can only be masters of so many things. I mean, we really can. And I think a lot of us that get caught up in the ego, because we've all done it. Let's just face it, we've all done it. So this isn't me preaching to somebody else that isn't. I'm the choir, right? I'm preaching to myself too.
Got 2 more members here, I'm sure.
Yeah, that try to do too many things because it looks good and sounds good, right? I just know too many people that you can watch them on Instagram or whatever. So I did this, and look, I did this, and I did this. They're it's more about the brag that I was co-writer, and I recorded this, and I played this and this and this, and then I also mixed it and I mastered it. It's like, well, yeah, but listen to it. Is it as good as it's like, well, no. Well, then there you go. Like, so you have to start trusting people to do the things that they are better at than you.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a musician, right? I mean, but when I produce something, I don't play on it because I know these studio guys are better than me. So I have to put the ego in the back seat and watch another drummer do something that I have to freely admit, yeah, he's better than me at that. You know what I mean? And in the early days, that's tough. I get it, guys. It is. It's tough to if your identity is that you're a guitar player, like the mine was when I was a drummer, because we wear those badges, don't we?
Yes.
That.
Oh yeah.
Well, look.
See
I mean,
behind
look.
me?
I mean, that's who we are, right?
Yeah.
We wear Fender, we wear Gibson, or
Oh, yeah.
whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And that's our identity, right? That's who.
Yeah.
Like that's who we are. That's when it hurts the most, because it's like that's not just a hobby, or that's not that. No, that's me. Like to my core, I am a guitar player or whatever.
I'm a
And when
guitar
somebody's better than
collector,
you,
for the record.
right? Sometimes it hurts a little bit, doesn't it? But if you turn some of those tasks over to people that are better than you, the record at the end of it's better. So all of that to say, people's listening to some of the records that I've done, and they consider me a great producer, right? It's like, wow, that's like you did that, like that record. Wow, that sounds amazing. What's your secret? Letting people that were better than me do the lion's share of it.
Yeah.
I mean, like gasp,
Yeah.
really? Yeah, I mean, that's the key. That drummer, he was better than me. That guitar player, he was better than me. That bass player freaking smoked me, I'm not a bass player, I'm a bass holder. So that to say, but just things that I could, I could be in the control room and engineer it, because I know that, hey, this I can do really, really well. I feel like I'm I can hold my own with anybody. So I will do that one task, and I'll leave you guys to do the others. And then the way Nashville works, everybody's egos are so we're used to bouncing ideas off of each other. So maybe I've already worked with the artist, and I've got a great idea of the skeleton of the song. This is the key. This is the chart. This is the turnaround is 4 bars long. We go right into verse 2, and one of the we'll cut it, and one of the musicians that I've handpicked will be, like, hey, does it sound like, they'll start giving their own ideas. because the floor is very open for that, because the whole idea isn't to serve my ego. The whole idea is to serve, and most all Nashville producers are this way, serve the song and serve the artist.
Okay.
So you listen to each other, and you know what? 90% of the time, their ideas and thoughts improve the song over what my original idea was.
Okay.
So I have to put my ego in the back seat and go, that, thank you for that idea. Now write that on your chart, and that's the new gospel rule. So what I'm getting at is that the final production is such a accumulation of so much talent and skill beyond myself that I'm just like this. Sometimes I feel like I'm 20% of that record, maybe, and that's fine.
Or you're getting out of the way of, you're backing up and letting the magic happen and then capturing it appropriately.
Yeah. So now, granted, I'm the final decision maker if I'm in that chair. So if there is an idea thrown out, we're like, hey, is this a little too slow? Do we need to speed this up? And I can say, no. This is what I want. This is the feel that I want. You can always, poo-poo that, veto that idea.
Right.
But honestly, everyone in the room is so good at what they do if you hire the right players that 90% of the time you're like, everybody's shaking their head like, yep. Even if it wasn't their idea, they're like, yeah, that.
Right.
So at the end of it, it makes me look. Here's I'm going to wrap that package, that long speech that I just gave. I'm going to wrap it up with a bow. At the end of it, remember how I started by people saying, "Wow, you're a great producer. You did that, whatever." Now I'm going to put the bow on it. I'm a great producer because I got out of the way. It wasn't because I'm so brilliant and so smart and like, man, you're the GOAT. No. I put a bunch of goats in the room with me.
Right.
And that's the secret I think I don't know a producer that doesn't, all the great ones that I know, that's their idea. That's how I learned it, is watching engineering for other great producers and being like, well, he's really open to ideas. Like, it's in the early days, it was shocking to me. It's like, but you're supposed to be the boss and you're supposed to be but then you realize that, you know what? But he's got a room of 5 other producers, world-class producers at each instrument chair, and he's absorbing their ideas and stuff into perfection. And you learn a lot from that.
Rick,
by the way,
Rubin
you could
quote.
call that milking goats. By the way, sorry, guys.
Milking goats. Yes. There you go.
Sorry, Jeremy.
Rick Rubin has a quote where he said his job is really to just have impeccable confidence in his taste as a producer. So he's getting all these ideas, like you're saying, and he's the guy that's like, okay, this part works, that part doesn't, and he's just putting all those things together, even though he has no idea how to play any of the instruments.
Yeah. It helps, I think, probably to be a musician and kind of, but you learn the lingo so far. I know some engineers. I get to ask that question sometimes about do you have to be a musician or a good musician to be, a successful engineer? And no, you don't. I know some engineers in Nashville they'll admit it. Hey, I can't play anything, but they just have enough of a musical mind, and they've been around musical people so long, they've absorbed the terminology and they know it all, that they're successful despite that. But I still think most of us are going to go further if we are musicians. I feel like that's the most likelihood path to success. But I know some good ones that people that made it without it. So who knows?
I think it's probably a matter of it's a hindrance to you when you maybe run into a problem where your musical acumen would give you the pathway out. But I think if you're thinking from a listening, it sounds right, it doesn't, you understand the sound physics and the engineering components of it, it's, as long as people are doing what they need to be doing, probably capturing that, it doesn't require as much of the musical acumen maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, you hit a snag. There may be sometimes that only a musician is going to be able to
yeah. I think you can probably go further and do like orchestral work. I've been real successful in orchestra stuff, and being able to set the score out and know what's going on, and the arranger's not there or they're on the floor. and they're expecting me to help police because there's things they're not hearing. And, when I can say, hey, check this bar and that bar or what, I think my career's probably went further than it would have if I was not, a musician as a bass, if that makes any sense. But
yeah,
who knows? Everybody's path is different,
Are you able to read the charts to the degree where?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
follow along with them. Yeah, but
That's
now
great.
that doesn't mean I can go out there and play it.
No, yeah, but no, but I mean, but that, like, it's almost, I don't want to say it's two different things. I mean, I think obviously, like, if you learn piano, the idea is to sort of blend it all together at once, the theory and the technique and all that jazz. But
Yeah.
so did you learn that on the job reading charts?
No, that goes all the way back to middle school. Well, I guess elementary school, in school band.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know because my kid is 12 and he's not in band, so maybe I don't really understand where things are at now. But gosh, I wouldn't give up that those years of reading music in a band setting. I wouldn't give that up for anything. I think that's anybody that their kid shows any musical inkling at all. But I think that middle school marching band thing can be an important part of their progress. I mean, it was to me. I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's like, wow, I know what a quarter note looks like.
Yeah.
I understand what a dotted eighth note is. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's helped me.
Yeah.
Maybe I would still be just as successful, and I just wouldn't have gotten into the orchestra world so much. I don't know. Who knows? Everybody's
but
career path is different, but
that's a good
I
point.
I just don't think there's any exposure to anything musical that is not going to be good for us in some way if this is our objective.
Yeah.
If their objective is to do this kind of a thing, I just don't think there's a musical experience that they shouldn't seek out if they can. And the younger these listeners are, if you've got any free time now and you're 15 or you're 20 and you're not married or whatever, do it now. Because man, the older you get, the harder it gets. There's just, once you start paying bills and you get married and there's children and stuff like that, you just don't pick up a new instrument. You just don't. I wish you could. But I shouldn't say you can't, but it becomes much less likely. Let's just say it that way.
Time becomes very precious.
Yes. Yeah. So learn as much as you can now. I mean, really just make that a goal. Just set goals of the years. I don't really play any, I'm a drummer. Okay, pick up guitar, because knowing chord structures and knowing those intervals and all that kind of stuff it's gonna help you if you want to get in the studio. It's knowing guitar is going to help you as a drummer. I promise.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be great. You don't have to be Eddie Van.
Yeah. Right.
Or Stevie Ray.
Right.
You can just know the basics. So when that terminology stuff starts flowing around the room, you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, because like even unless because I want to talk about jazz in a second also, but most of what you'd be recording anyway, even if it's like kind of avant-garde stuff, the chord structures and the arrangements are usually only gonna at a foundational level get so complicated. So it's like if major, minor, augmented, suspended, your key signature is the chords that belong to a key and all that. That's not rocket science, and it can be intimidating at first, but if you learn the basics on one instrument, you usually cover a lot of that stuff. So it's like that absolutely prepares you. And, and then being an intent listener too, spending time when you're younger, like you're saying, absorbing things, like listen hard, try to isolate instrumentation and counter melodies and understand like the vocabulary between those elements. That just knowing that alone, even without any theory, will kind of shortcut some of what theory will teach you as well. And then you can kind of put the icing on the cake later on to be able to have comprehensive discussions about that. But so something like, I don't know how to pronounce the artist name, but is it Jane Monai or Monhai or
Jane Monheit? I just finished a new Christmas song for her yesterday and went to mastering today. Yeah.
Amazing. So phenomenal singer, obviously.
Oh my God, yeah. Unbelievable.
And I was listening. We were going through your Mixed by Joe Carrell playlist, and I listened to 2 tracks, The Man That Got Away, which I really, really enjoyed, and Let's
Oh
Take a
yeah.
Walk Around. Yeah. So that's very sort of traditional.
Like club jazz
Yeah,
almost.
there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Club jazz.
yeah.
Perfect. You probably have to have some chart reading acumen with that, I would imagine. But then also both capture that and capturing the sounds accurately because of the different nature of how those instruments, their tonal character, even though some of those instruments also belong to orchestral. Is that, a unique challenge when you're going from something like rock or pop and then diving into that context?
Very much. Okay, so we use the same tools, right? A jazz date or a heavy rock date. All right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same tools. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we may change some of the microphones out, but to look for a darker flavor on the jazz date, we want
Okay.
the drum overheads or the piano to be dark
Yeah.
ish.
Right. Right.
Um, so I'm not saying some of the tools don't change, but it pretty much the same, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, compression is still compression, EQ is still EQ, reverb is
Yep.
still reverb. Um, but you use them differently in all these different genres. And I think the thing that your listeners have to understand is that I just did the thing on this the other day on social media, is that most of us don't know where our career is going to go, because you can't control it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't know if you work at a commercial studio, you don't know what's coming in there that day. You
Right.
don't know, okay, I'm an entry level engineer, meaning I'm just running Pro Tools for other people. What engineer is going to actually offer you a gig? And we're like, okay, hey, I can move beyond this because I'm now that guy's assistant. Was he a country guy? Is he a rock guy? But the thing, when you're young, you can't say no to anything because you don't know.
Yeah.
There may literally, you may get one open door in your entire career. And if you
Yep.
don't take it, you're going to be working at Lowe's,
Mm-hmm.
and music is just a hobby and a dream.
Yeah.
All that to say, you need to really listen to as much music as you can in all the different genres and hear the differences, because there's massive differences in expectations. So, for
Sure.
example, on a jazz date, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to put mics up and it's going to be extremely unprocessed. I'm
Okay.
not going to compress. Literally, I probably won't put a compressor on anything. The only thing I may EQ a little bit is a kick drum and the tom toms, and that is it. And
Interesting.
I mean, that's it, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And on the mix, again, it's got to be very dynamic. So a lot of fader rides,
Mm.
they can't hear compression. They The thing is, they want compression, but they think they don't. Is what
Okay.
I've found, because it doesn't sound like a record if it's not compressed.
Yes.
So you got to find very invisible ways to compress, but less compression than what we're used to in a lot of other genres,
Yeah.
right? So a lot
Mm-hmm.
more. It's like, oh, that's a loud moment. Well, pull it down with your finger. But more parallel compression that's kind of hidden, so the
Mm-hmm.
vocal still sounds up front, but still very dynamic.
Yep.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in rock, man, we're going to tape, where there's going to be compression on the snare drum, on the kick drum.
Yeah.
There's going to be, EQ on those things, but heavier handed EQ. Where on the jazz days, I'm only a touching a couple things with the EQ, and it's very light. On the heavier days, or whatever, the tom EQ may be wham, like all over the place,
Yeah. Yeah.
intentionally overdriving preamps, to get some color. Where on the jazz date, you don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but you learn that kind of stuff by listening, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
but and all that to say that since you don't know where those opportunities are going to arise, when you do get the chance, you won't look stupid by doing the wrong thing. If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
if you listen to heavy rock all the time,
Yeah.
and that first open door is jazz or blues or Broadway or bluegrass, and
Yeah.
you treat it like that. I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten jobs like that where people bring stuff to me or back to me where they tried somebody else and like, oh my God, like this guy tried to make it sound like Metallica and
Yeah.
we're bluegrass, it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the kid was doing what he thought it's like, well,
Yes.
hey, this is what I know,
Yeah.
and this is what my other clients liked. So he didn't know what bluegrass was. But anyway, all that to say, I think you just need to listen a lot and learn how to. It's the same tools, we just use them differently, and you just
Yeah.
learn the expectations of those genres and then you know how to use those tools, if
Yeah.
accordingly. If that makes sense. I hope that answers the question.
No, no, absolutely, yeah. And in fact, too, I'll even add to that where, that's a good rule for, or a philosophy for learning how to play other styles, or forget other styles, how to play different instruments that you have somewhat of an inclination towards. Like, I would never call myself a bass player, but I can fake it really good because I hear the things that like the characteristic things that bass players do, and I'm like, all right, I can at least like make it sort of sound like
Yeah,
that, you know,
yeah,
on a couple measures.
yeah.
Right.
I know where the frets are.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You
kind
know,
of
Yeah,
playing with the
get it.
cliches in a way and putting
sure.
them together in different ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just can't mix a jazz record the way you mix a modern pop country record, and you
Yeah.
can't if or you're going to lose the gig.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to get that call again, and vice versa. You can't let a pop track be that unprocessed and dynamic, or to be like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
This,
Oh,
this
absolutely.
isn't punchy. This isn't
Yeah.
whatever.
So when you're
Especially
going
with
into,
the, sorry,
go ahead,
Jeremy.
go ahead.
Especially in that, I was just going to say, we don't need to go on another kind of rabbit hole with this, but especially looking at that playlist, a lot of the pop country pop,
Mhm.
stuff where it's needing to kind of touch a bunch of different genres all at once.
Mhm.
I would imagine there's very, very hard expectations all the time as to like, there's at least got to be this, and there's always at least got to be that, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the country thing is the pop country is a little bit of a moving target. I mean, it's fun, because it's got a lot of pop elements and a lot of but real instruments too.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I don't know. If I feel like they're wanting it more and more all the time to be a rock record with a little twang on the lyric.
Uh-huh.
It's like more and more compression, more and more of the what we'd expect out of the pop and rock world. Uh, but then again, there's that whole other side that kind of the door opened back up with oh Tennessee whiskey.
oh yeah, yeah,
The name is
Stapleton.
escaping me.
Chris
So
Stapleton,
it's Stapleton, yeah.
yeah,
But now there's this little subgenre. I shouldn't say subgenre because it is country.
Yeah.
That should be the main genre, right? But I mean,
We
it's
could
hitting
only
the
be so
radio
lucky.
again. That's hitting the radio again, right?
yeah,
Alongside of the real poppy, shiny
yeah,
tracks. All of a sudden, there's this more organic thing too. So I usually try to get the artist to tell me right up front, what they're expecting, and
yeah,
or if it's there's times where they just give it to you and they just do your thing, and
mhm,
and you're like, okay,
yeah, yeah,
eh, gosh, and then it's always so frustrating when you give them your thing and they're like, yeah, no, what I really had in mind was, and then they'll give you a reference track, and I was, why the blank did you
yeah,
when I asked you, if you had, we wouldn't be remixing this if you had told me your reference like I asked. But
yeah, right. Good point.
yeah,
Yeesh.
I will say for me, and there's
Mhm,
going to be people out there that this doesn't fit their personality. There's people that really love a certain genre and they only really want to work in that genre, and that door opens and they kind of live there. Um,
yeah,
for me, I'm a lover of music, all things music. I mean, I just finished a record for Broadway star Stephanie J. Block.
mhm,
Enormous in that world. He's
yeah,
won Tonys and all that kind of stuff. Um, and it's huge and orchestrated to the it's enormous. And I turned that in for mastering, right? And that's a one whole entire different skill set. The
yep,
very next day, I'm doing the Dirty Roses.
mhm,
So it's
yeah,
Southern rock, man. It's a Les Paul into a Marshall. Let's
mhm,
go.
yes,
What's a pedal board? I
yeah,
mean,
right, right.
like yeah, it's
Fire
Leonard
up those
Skinner.
tubes, yeah,
Right, if Leonard Skinner had sons, it would be these guys.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Okay, to check
but
them out.
that's what floats my boat.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I don't know if it's OCD or what it is, but I cannot work in just one thing and be content and happy. I want to
yeah,
employ my tools in different ways and nail things all over the board.
yeah,
That's what excites me. I want to be able to turn in that Stephanie J. Block, album to her producer, her label, and her, and be like, wow,
yeah,
that's amazing. And then send a song to the Dirty Roses that's unbelievably different. And for them to go, man, that's slapping. Like that's what excites me,
yeah,
is trying to because I love this. I love this craft. I love
mhm,
everything about it. And so being able to work in all those genres is what excites me. But I think it's more diverse than ever. People
Yeah.
are listening to so many genres now
Oh yeah.
because we're not relying on radio. I
Right.
think that us as engineers, most of us, our career path is going to take us into directions where we're not comfortable, right? Where we don't know, where we haven't been. And that's how we pay our bills. Most of us don't have that luxury, right? No, I don't do that genre. So I'm going to say no. Well, where are you going to get your paycheck then? How are you going to keep food on the, how are you going to keep your car out of repo? So most of us, I think, really need to kind of, have that expectation is like, I got to be good at a lot of things, a lot of genres, and just kind of give up that chase of just one genre, because I think that's I think a small percentage of us get to do this for a living anyway, as far as like our full-time income.
Absolutely.
And then even a smaller percentage of us get to focus on that one niche thing, so
Yeah.
most of the guys that are out there are going to have to, you're going to have to wear some different hats, so hopefully they like that.
Yeah.
So
otherwise their Trans Am may get, taken it from the bank.
So I think you're making some great points about all the different subgenres that there are now. There's like you're talking about country, there's pop country, there's outlaw country, there's throwback country, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the music world, and there's 20 different subgenres for every genre of rock.
I just got an outlaw country LP in the mail today from a client.
Nice.
So that yeah.
And so whenever you're like jumping from genre to genre, how much research are you doing on what kind of sound you're trying to go for a particular track versus what's the client providing? What does that look like?
That's a solid question. In the early days, it was intense, right? So in those first couple of years when you're still trying to develop your craft, which what that's a stupid thing to say because I still feel like I'm developing it, but like really in the earlier stages where you're like, okay, I'm getting paid to do this. I've got to nail this. I've got to, because I want them to, that this is a chance to get a new client and keep paying the bills and make this a full-time job. So it was intense. There was study time. Study time was part of my day, a lot of times, not every day, of course, but it was a thing. But as time has gone on and I've improved and so many of those genres are just ingrained into me now, it's less, but I kind of enjoy fitness. So I a few times a week try to do a little work on the elliptical or something like that. So let's say that accumulates to, I don't know, 4 hours a week or something. These are in and they're not on just what I want to listen to.
Oh,
what's fun to work out to? Well, vintage Van Halen, right? or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm that idiot and that weirdo that'll turn on, oh, Michael Bublé dropped a new record. I'll work out to it. But it's love songs. I don't care.
Bridgers.
Like you know what I mean? I need to know what's going on with Michael Bublé on his new record because I serve that community too.
Yeah.
Orchestral world, people are going to be like, are you crazy? I've lifted weights to Disney musical stuff before. It's the opposite of what you should do.
Yeah.
For the workout, but the workout for me is just brain food anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm keeping myself updated in what little free time I have, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I put on the just the other day, I just typed in rock, and Apple Music has like what's current in rock going on. But they do that in country and everything else. So I go through those. I'm going to be in the car for an hour by myself. Bam, put it on. And so I'm using some of my alone time to continue that education because it never stops. The needles in those genres are constantly moving.
Yeah.
So you got to know where they're moving to. I mean, you may be, content and be really good in that genre for the next 6 months or even the next 6 years. It really depends on the genre.
Yeah.
In pop music, you better be listening to it a lot. In bluegrass, check it out. Yeah, bluegrass. If you check it out once or twice a year, you're fine. You're fine because it's not going to go anywhere. That. But does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and that's something I've been struggling with doing. Me and Mike are bedroom producers, producing our own stuff, and I try to make things sound like the records I love. But so many of the records I love are from the 70s and 80s or the 60s.
Right.
And one thing I'm trying to do more is listen to more current music that's maybe still in that genre, but there's whole different production techniques that people are using, and staying up to date on all that stuff, so it sounds current, but it still sounds like something that I'm interested in.
But it's still good to know that 70s stuff too, because you still find, and I know this is, you're going to be like, yeah, that's happened to me. You'll have people come to you and they'll deliver you a song or the idea of a song if you're producing it or whatever, and they'll be chasing something from the 80s or from the 70s or whatever. So you better know what was different, you know, and so you can deliver, or you don't get the job. You know, so I mean, you just can't have enough good information up here. You can't, and I make that a point to just keep flooding it, you know. I consider myself, I don't care what I've accomplished, I'm still a student of this stuff, you know. I never want to be that guy that, you know, because I've heard we've all heard those interviews with certain engineers that, you know, their way is the way, everything they do is right, and they've done it for 20 years and blah blah blah, and this is like, gosh, if I'm still using the same signal chain in 20 years that I'm using today, shame on me. Like, you know, like literally, like I want to grow and learn and expand. I just don't want to get stale and complacent and bored, you know?
And that, you know, and it shows in terms of your presentation to the world about what you do, in the sense that, like, you're enthusiastic, and in addition to your actual skills with this vast catalog that you've mixed and produced on, you also probably give off, I mean, you do give off an energy that makes people excited to work with you. So that's probably another component, an unintended attribute, where, like, I'm going to make it engaging and fun, and you know, bring something fresh to the table because I'm still hungry in the learning sense. So that's good advice, you know, for everyone listening. I think Joe's onto something here.
And the other part of it is just being, you know, well caffeinated and lots of dark chocolate. So, you know, extra caffeine.
Oh, that's right. You're a chocolate guy.
Yeah, man. You ought to see the stash I've got over here in the side.
Well, I'm
pretty impressive.
I would love to see it. We'll attempt to send you something that you may have never tried, because I like chocolate a lot too. So
nice.
Stay tuned.
Speaking of staying current on stuff, it kind of shows you're not only doing mixing and all of these engineering things, but you're also producing content for YouTube, and you've got this whole other brand that you're building that's outside of that, which is really interesting. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you get started doing all that stuff.
That's a wonderful question. I did a couple interviews, just like what we're doing now. Graham Cochran, I think it was called The Recording Revolution. You remember that? It was a real successful thing before Warren, and you know, it was the early stages of making the Learn Engineering YouTube thing. You know, gosh, that's probably what, 15 years ago or something.
Probably.
I had a, you know, handful of successful records, and he hit me up. I can't remember how it happened. Anyway, I did that interview, and you know, of course, back then he had a huge audience. I mean, I think it was like 20,000 views on YouTube or something.
Oh yeah.
And so you get a bunch of followers, and things just happened organically. Honestly, I'm a gear junkie, and as you, well, I don't know if the camera shows or not, but trust me, I'm a gear junkie, and that's why I work so much. I just need to buy more. And no, anyway, I posted a picture of the Warm Audio 1176 on my Instagram or Facebook. I don't even think Instagram existed back then. Anyway, because I had such a good following, one of them happened to know the guy from Warm Audio that had started the company, and Warm Audio was little at the time. And I'll try to make this quick. He connected us. And he was like, "Hey, Bryce would love to have somebody in Nashville that's doing what you're doing in that studio, you know, on board, you know, like that would excite him." And I was like, "Well, I'm excited about this product. This is killer, and it's a fraction of the cost." You know, one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden, you know, they're sending me prototypes of stuff, you know, to test and things like that. And so I started doing some new product releases for them, and the next thing you know, it's really the same way my music career happened. The phone just starts ringing, you know, or emails or whatever the case may be. So, you know, other companies would hit me up and be like, hey, we saw that video you did for this product. Can you do one for our product? If you like it, we'll send it to you and you check it out. And it just blossomed from there.
Yeah.
To the point where recently, late last year, somebody, Manny from Produce Like a Pro, had, I guess he followed me or something, and he was like, man, if you considered working with Warren, because like you guys like seems like you would just do this. And so he talked to Warren, and Warren, I guess, checked out some videos, and like, that guy, I was like, wow. So we talked on the phone, and honestly, about an hour in, I think we talked for 2 hours straight, me and him.
Yeah,
and
nice.
I think at the end of the phone conversation, Lee was on the phone from Produce Like a Pro. He's like, he says, other than the fact that you're British and you're American and you're in this town and you're in this town, it's like, you guys are like the same guy.
You are.
Whatever. Like, well, that's cool. So
yeah.
So anyway, now back to your original question, I've really hit a whole nother level of that kind of stuff, because that Produce Like a Pro audience wants content all the time. There are a lot of hungry.
We sure do.
Yeah. There's a lot of
me
hungry.
and Mike met as Produce Like a Pro.
There you go. There's a lot of hungry guys out there that just want as much as Warren will tell them, as much as Mark will tell them, as Manny will tell them, or as I will tell whoever. Like, they just want it, because they're just really, really passionate about what they do and wanting to improve and improve and improve. So that's put a whole new. It's hard. I'm telling you, if you're trying to do the full-time engineer producer guy, to work content in as well is tough. It really is. But I'm putting a new focus on content, and I'm going to try to put a few days a month into that, and solely that, and say no to a couple records and a couple singles here and there, which is scary, because that's not that. I've never done that. I'm always the 7 days a week in the studio guy. So, but I love it. I love the teaching thing, not because I'm not a teacher. I really don't. I've had people say, it's like, well, you're such a natural at teaching. I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm just I'm naturally excited about this stuff.
That comes through.
I'm not teaching. I don't feel like I am. I just feel like I'm talking to friends. Yeah. And so I've really enjoyed it. Honestly, all those videos have been just a blast, and
they're fun to watch. You got a good energy,
Well, I appreciate it. Warren is he's just a fun dude. I really respect him.
Yeah,
he had
he's
a great
awesome.
time at NAMM, hanging out, for those days. And I think we're a little bit of two peas in a pod. So I think this is probably going to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah, no, we look forward to seeing more to come. Yeah, we should join you guys on the next NAMM. In fact, I think that the other side of what we were talking before, with taking a certain pathway to getting to being a mixing engineer or producer in the studio kind of sense, we're in such a great time to like have a community and learn and like connect with each other and get feedback in a way we never did before. That's probably the biggest thing, I think, if we're talking about something like Produce Like a Pro. Context, you weren't able to get feedback like this 20 years ago. Even, I would say, right? If you're writing something, maybe you join some sort of bulletin or some type of group before things like that was probably there 20 years ago, but like Meetup or anything else.
For me, for a lot of people are in rural America, not just cities. For me, it was just, my tools were Mix Magazine and EQ Magazine. That's all I had. There was nothing beyond that. There was nothing. Engineering was not, you didn't get VHS tapes of engineers doing their thing,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's a whole different world.
Oh yeah. So couple things I wanted to got a couple fun, like almost exercises or whatever, but we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to ask you if we could do some plugging for you. You have the Carrell sample pack released. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
I'm proud of that. It's much the way that the connections with SSL and Plugin Alliance and everybody else has happened. They just contacted me. We've got this sample company going, and it's going. We started it in COVID, and it's doing really well. And like, we need to up the game and turn out more packs. And we're wanting to do signature packs. Where it's that guy's vision and not just the two of us, because there was two guys that run Drum Sample Shop. And at the time when they hit me up, I'm like, gosh, Yeah, like because I mean, because I mix in so many modern genres, I'm
Yeah.
constantly using drum samples, and I've created a lot of them. Like days, like all of us do. Drum sounds are exceptionally good that day. You're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like, hey, can you
I
hit
need to
that snare
keep
drum a
this.
couple extra times?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But just like everybody else, I've bought the Slate drum samples, and
Hmm.
I have it. Oh my God, way too many gigabytes worth of drum samples,
Yeah.
but to find the ones that were my vision was always a challenge, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
And I think most of us as mixers would say that. And all that to say, I said yes. And boy, I'm glad I did. So we went into the tracking room that I worked from, and with my gear, my drums, and sampled it. And this guy was the best drum tuner I've actually ever been in a room with. I'm not kidding you. I could tell him, because he let me call the shots. This wasn't just putting my face on another person's product.
Sure.
I would say, he would bring up a drum. Okay, here's the 6.5-inch bronze. Here's what we got. Be like, okay, give me, tighten that up. Okay, a little higher pitch. Okay, can you make the strainer? I want less strainer out. I want it more tight, or give me more strainer out. I mean, I was constantly telling him, can you get more ring? Can you give me
Yeah.
less ring?
Can you make it
And
swampy?
then I would tell him, yeah, exactly. I would tell him, let's stop right there, right there. Okay, let's capture that. And so he
Yeah.
would give me the hits on that. And then I would ask for something different from that drum. And then we'd switch drums. And we did that for 3 days,
Wow.
3 days in a row. This
Mhm.
is a big sample pack. It's
Yeah.
really big. 12 gigs. I think it maybe even over 12 gigs.
Wow.
That is
And it's
amazing.
Atmos ready.
Mhm.
It's
That's
not, it don't
important
have to be
distinction.
Atmos, but it's Atmos ready. Anyway,
Okay.
all that to say, then I mixed them through my process I do a parallel
Mhm.
compression thing, a parallel distortion thing, different that crotch mic that I can use or not use, that
Mhm.
can be distorted or not distorted, blah blah blah. All that to say, I think the drums are really representative of me, and I know I've used the crap out of them since I got them.
Yeah.
I'm
Nice.
using them all the time because it's like, and I even know I can go now and be like, oh, I want my 5.5. I want my, we can't call them what their real names are, but I want my
Yeah.
I want my Yamaha 5.5-inch Birch. I know I
Yeah.
want that drum for this song, and I
Right.
just go and grab my drum, for the Dirty Roses or whomever, and that's pretty exciting. So it was a fun process. It was a lot of
Yeah.
work. It really
Right.
was. It was a lot
Sure.
of work.
But that's why it's,
Hopefully I
came
make
out the
my
way it
money
did.
back at it for the hours I got.
Yeah.
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 'Cause
Well,
I got a
hey,
lot
the
of
more we
hours.
talk about it, the more we can get it out
Yeah,
in the
yeah, that's
ether,
true. A drum sample shop, but yeah, I'm very proud
Yes.
of it. Honestly, I'm very proud of it.
Awesome. And I'll even add that for anyone that maybe wants a little bit more kind of in-depth context, we'll plug another podcast, Ed Thorne and Paul Third, the Working Audio Tools. You had spoken to them about this.
Yeah,
And
yeah, good
you,
dudes.
yeah, they're great. And you delved into maybe a little bit more sort of nuances, about sort of ways you can use it. So
Yeah.
everyone listening and watching that's interested, please go check out the Working Audio Tools and the Produce Like a Pro podcast, and their interview with Joe. Other than what you just mentioned with Jane Mun High, are there other sort of exciting things you got in the pipeline that you are able
Well,
to talk about?
yeah, that Stephanie J. Block record I think is going to be a big one because
Mhm.
in the Broadway world she's a big star. She's
Yeah.
been on Wicked. She was the lead of Into the Woods. She's
Right. Mhm.
won various awards. So
Exciting.
she's in that world she's really big. So I think
Mhm.
that's going to be a big record, and it's kind of in that oh gosh, Michael Bublé style.
Mhm.
If guys are like, what does he mean by Broadway? It's
Mhm.
kind of jazz, or the roots of a jazz section,
Yeah.
but a lot of it's heavily orchestrated.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
there's a handful of poppy tunes on there too. But
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really big.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's going to do really well. Gosh, see what else it hasn't released. I'm really proud of. There's a song that just came out last Friday
Mhm.
for a pop artist she's an indie artist, but
Okay.
her name is Mackenzie Johnson.
Okay.
And I've known her since we were both a lot younger.
Mhm.
I mean, she's only I think in her late 20s. Literally, her voice is just butter. It records like
Mm.
butter. She's so good at what she does. And it's called He Would, Mackenzie Johnson He Would. And
Okay.
I didn't produce it. I have produced some tracks for her, but that was another guy up in New York that produced it. I just mixed it, but I'm really proud of the way that mix turned out. You know, just like anytime she's got a new song, I'm all in because her voice is so, she's
I'm
just so
excited
good.
to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really great. Let's see what else.
Well, if you think of it, just shout it out. We'll give your
Oh,
break.
you know,
Oh, go.
I just thought of a good one because if a lot of your guys are Produce Like a Pro fans,
Yes.
I've got a new video coming out that I'm not going to give away the concept of the video. But the song, the EP is recorded, and it's a local band called Maxwell and the Shakes. That won like when they were seniors, they won the Belmont, which is a massive music school. So if you win the Belmont talent show, you know, of music that year, you're a big deal. You're a big deal. So anyway, I recorded their new EP, and 2 songs are going to be featured on Produce Like a Pro. We're going to give away multi-tracks.
Oh, great.
And, we're actually giving away some microphones too. But those videos, first of all, the EP is going to turn out fantastic. So Maxwell and the Shakes, but those videos I think I really feel like they're going to resonate with a lot of people. I hope everyone watches it when it comes out. We're probably a month away because the video edit is going to be big, because this is a big concept video. It's not one of my little 15-minute, hey, here's how I use an 1176. It's a bigger deal than that. But I'm excited about that video.
Oh, that's great.
Very excited about that video.
Good. Can't wait to throw that on my my playlist.
It's probably one of those where you're probably gonna be a 45-minute video or something. So be sure and have some time when you're ready. When you're ready to watch it.
I need a lot of stuff to dig into after the kids fall asleep, you know. So
there you go.
When we're not doing this. All right. So for a little fun, little just departure, we could do both scenarios or one or the other. But I was like, oh, you know, Joe's a real gearhead and a real plug-in guy, as you know, a lot of us are. So let's talk maybe 2 scenarios. So either or desert scenario where it's like, you know, you're only able to bring X, Y, and Z, or a bare minimum mix challenge, which I think would be more interesting. But I kind of feel like your description of recording jazz may kind of cover this. But let's maybe start with the bare minimum challenge. So let's say you find yourself in a situation where you can't use any of the following plugins or outboard gear equivalents. Anything not mentioned goes. So the things you can't use, so whether it's a plugin or a physical, you know, rack mounted thing, reverb. Okay, that doesn't mean what's happening in the room, but like a reverb plate or you know, a reverb unit. Delay, distortion, stereo widening, and then here's the real, this is rough, compression.
Okay.
So if you wanted to make an interesting mix with, you know, it could be a rock band, it could be orchestral or whatever else. I think you kind of covered in the jazz context. But what would you do with your tool set that you've, you know, accumulated over these years to not use reverb, delay, distortion, stereo widening, or compression to make something sound interesting? Vocals, guitar, you know, drum kit.
That honestly, that is an easy answer for me. That. My finger.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Automation.
Yeah.
That would be it. Like, to me, a lot of our most important decisions are made within that first just couple minutes of the song. Like when I bring up the faders and I'm listening to something for the first time, you know, we do a lot of things that we know are just right. You know, for example, kick drum in the middle, bass drum in the middle, snare drum in the middle, lead vocal in the middle. And after that, there's a lot of room to you know, we got a big stage between left and right, you know. And so our pannings and our levels to me are a massive part of the mix. In fact, I don't even start adding effects ever until it sounds like a hit without them. I mean, that's just my normal mix process. Is I've got everything balanced, everything, you know, hitting the stereo bus, blah, blah, blah. And until it sounds great, I don't even dial in 1 ounce of reverb on anything.
Look at that.
So that wouldn't, I don't think that would be, now, of course, it sounds better with reverb. So if I can't use reverb, I'm probably you said I can't use compression either, right?
Nope.
Well, it's just going to have to be the best that it can be with my fingers.
Well, I mean, but that doesn't mean you can't use a room or something, right? I'm just saying,
hopefully I get
manipulated
a drum,
reverb, you know?
Right. Hopefully I get some nice, some ambient mics, you know, to use.
Sure.
But, but yeah, even without the compression, because I do a lot of automation anyway. on every
Okay.
mix, even in
Yeah.
the genres that you don't think. You're like, wow, that genre is really slapping. That
Yeah.
compressor is pegging.
Yeah.
If you looked at my automation, it's going like this all over the place the whole song.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I that's something I learned from Bobby is like, you know, you watch the great ones, and most of the great ones you see that, right? You know,
Yeah.
you see their fingers making subtle moves just all over the place all the time. And I feel like that's where the excitement comes from,
Yeah.
you know, to me. If it's not a static level, even in the songs that sound like they need to be a static level because they're banging, I'm moving stuff all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. I hope
Interesting.
that
No,
answered
no,
that
that's
question.
great. Perfect answer. So there, so then the desert island scenario, you're suddenly marooned on a desert island, but
Hmm.
you have full power and internet. You were wise enough to pack you were wise enough to pack your must-haves before the trip or before the trip that went awry. What are your essential tools? Let's say DAW, interface, mic. Let's just kind of keep it limited to like under, let's say 8 things or something.
Under 8 things. Well, I've got to
Yeah.
have. Ooh, man. Okay. Well, yeah, I've got to have Pro Tools. I mean,
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
only DAW that I
Okay.
know.
Of course.
That's
Yeah.
not a plug saying it's the best. They all do the same
Yeah.
thing. I get
Yeah.
it, but
Mhm.
that's the one that I know.
Sure.
So I've got to have Pro Tools. That's number
Okay.
one. I'm a speaker guy. I still love working on speakers, although I did recently get some Neumann headphones that sound over
Ooh.
there, NDH 30s, that sound really good.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to take a pair of my Adams speakers probably.
Okay.
You know, because I'm going to have full range, even though I'm a Yamaha NS10 guy, I got to have some full range speakers.
Right.
So I'm a big fan
You
of
got to worry
Adams.
about getting
So
off that island, not how it's going to sound in the car. So don't worry about
right,
the NS10s. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so but recording. Okay, so if I
Mm.
one plug-in bundle.
Okay. Yeah. Of course.
Who's
You got the internet.
who? Ooh, wow,
This one's
man,
going to be controversial.
yes, it's either gonna, for me right now, the people that are killing it. Oh man,
Your sponsors
I
are
don't
all
know.
like, "Oh man, no, it's
Yeah.
better not mention that." No, I'm kidding.
Okay, well, can I use 2 plug-in bundles?
Oh yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Just,
So
but
because I'm
again,
up
you're
to 2.
taking away from your your balance here.
Okay.
So keep that in
All
mind.
right.
Yeah.
So Plug-in Alliance and SSL are killing it right now.
Okay.
On the play, they've all got a full range of products that just are so good. All right,
Mhm.
I'm up to 4.
Yeah.
I gotta have a Neve preamp, got to,
Okay. All right.
and I've got to have a clean something. How about?
Don't forget your mic, by the way. We're getting down to the wire.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I've got to have preamp that's not a Neve. I mean, I got. Let's just go API. With those 2 things,
Okay.
I can get it done. I can get
Okay.
it done.
All right.
All right. So let's see. I've got to have what tube mic for vote 67. It works
Can't
on
go wrong.
everything.
Okay.
Works on everything.
Yeah.
I got to have a. Do I want a 57 or do I want a 421? Let's go 421.
Okay.
Let's go 421.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I got 2 more things, right?
I think we may have hit the max, but let's
Oh, did I? Well, that's 8, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah.
Give him
Oh,
10. Give him 10.
the question was 8. Give him 10. All right.
Give him
How
10.
All right, sure.
about-
Yeah.
Well,
Bonus
okay,
round.
in 1176,
Okay.
and then chocolate. That's 10.
Oh yeah.
You will need to eat
Chocolates for the
something.
win.
Yeah.
That's right. Right. I'm not gonna live very long. I'm on a desert island. So what I'm
Yeah.
gonna eat until I die, chocolate.
Yeah. It'll go
Yeah, well,
great
that's
with
gonna
the
keep-
coconuts.
Hey, you know what? Yeah, right. Well, actually, but no, let's be realistic here. The coconuts are going to be good for, like you're going to get your fat, and it's going to be good
Yeah.
for your teeth. You won't get cavities, and then the chocolate's going to
Yeah.
give you the theobromine. And
My
good
skin's
for your
probably gonna be
bloodstream.
amazing.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
that was a good choice. That's really funny. All right. Okay. Well done. Well done. We, we almost stumped you there, but
That's tough. That is tough,
Yeah.
because tomorrow morning I wake up and all 8 would probably be different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also sort of one of those things where, you could limit, yourself in different ways with going across genres, and you're going to have to use different techniques and stuff. But I guess we don't always, I'm thinking in terms of essentials because I just have like a bare bones setup. Right.
Yeah.
But I would imagine for some people, it gets to the point when you build out your gear haven, and then it's like, then you have all these options. It's hard to kind of think of not having them all at your disposal. So that's why I was curious, because it's
Let me
also
give you
telling in terms of what's important. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me give you one little teaser.
Yeah.
You are really on to something that may be in that video that's going to come out with Produce Like a Pro. You may be on to something.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah. And
no,
here's one other little caveat to your question. Mm-hmm. I've got all this gear, but I've got no one to record. I've got a great tube mic, but I don't have any instruments. So
yeah. I mean, you could record the animals. You could do like
well, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Do some world sounds.
Yeah.
I guess I should have brought a couple instruments. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Jeez, I should have disclaimed that in the question. Oh my God. So I don't want to, just in case Jeremy has anything else, I don't want to kind of take away from that, but I was going to say that respectful of your time. We really, really appreciate this and really enjoyed this. And I hope you did as well.
I did. It was fun. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Please, everyone, if you're not already a big follower of Joe Carrell, please start now, because he has a lot of great things that will help you improve as a mixer, producer, artist, and there's a lot more great engineer. There's a lot more great things to come, and especially a lot of the team ups, as Joe's mentioning, with Produce Like a Pro. So, and then of course all of the artists that he's working with that we've mentioned and he's mentioned. So please follow Joe on every single network, and he won't disappoint with the content that he puts up. And
things will be try to work some comedy in there, as well.
Yes, no, and that's one of his specialties as well. So yeah, so Joe, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and
thanks so much, Joe.
Yeah, let's stay in touch.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. All right. Well, we look forward to hopefully speaking with you more, and until next time.
Yeah.
And NAMM in January, you coming to NAMM?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll try. Yeah.
I would love to.
I'll see you there.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
So much.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Did you enjoy that episode? Yes. Would you like to see and hear more? Please like and subscribe, and you'll automatically receive notifications when we publish new episodes. Thanks for watching and listening to the WoAS podcast.